Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra. Extra, because we are on a Wednesday. Oh, my goodness me. It's the middle of the week. It's the hump. And trust me, that's what we intend to give you tonight. Here we are in the library. We've got the fire on because it's reet chilly tonight. What are we reading? Well, we are going to pick back up with The Ghosts of Bury Pomeroy Castle, because we were reading that last week and then we had to stop because it was Burns night on Sunday. We will return to the Scottish haunted places of Scotland because that's brilliant. Everything in that's nice and short. But let's finish off Bury Pomeroy Castle. What are we drinking tonight? Banks Amber Bitter. It says, crafted with the finest ingredients to deliver a deep gold amber beer with a clean finish and fruity overtones. The blend of Fuggles and Goldings, the classic twin hop masterpiece, delivers a classic English beer. Double use of the word classic there, but ha ha ha. 3.4%, so not too bad. Best before 31st of October 26. Yeah, it'd be lucky if it lasts tonight. So with the magnificent, with the magnificent new Rush bottle opener, thank you viewers Kirsten and Steve, in the United States, we will pour it into the equally magnificent Rush beer glass from Kirsten and Steve in the United States. So God bless the pair of you. It says on the back, books are for tourists, beer is for geniuses. So let's just pour this one out. That will do. That will do for now. And like I say, we are still reading The Ghosts of Bury Pomeroy Castle. We are washing it down with the single grain scotch from Lidl, which is glorious stuff. So let's top that up. And I'm just going to try and sort out the photographs for half time tonight. So let's just have a look. Bear with. Yeah. I'm just sorting out the pictures for half time. Because we had a right rainbow adventure today. It was glorious. I can hear Dirk downstairs. There we go. That'll do. Right. Shall we crack on with the ghost stories? Try and remember where we'd got to. Okay. Well, we'll pick up on this page. So we were reading up on Ghosts of Bury Pomeroy Castle, and this was the section on records of visible phenomena. Almost immediately afterwards, he was called to see the patient whom he found so ill that he had to give his undivided attention to her case. The next day, however, finding her much better, he inquired of the steward as to the lady he had seen and described her appearance. The steward became greatly agitated, exclaiming repeatedly, "My poor wife!" But eventually, becoming calmer, he told the doctor that he was now sure that she would die, and enlightened him as to the history of the apparition so far as he knew it. It appears that when it was the daughter of a former Baron of Bury Pomeroy, who had borne a child to her own father and strangled it in the room above. He added that he had lived in the castle for read that again. But eventually, becoming calmer, he told the doctor that he was now sure that she would die, and enlightened him as to the history of the apparition as far as he knew it. It appears that it was the daughter of a former Baron of Berry Pomeroy who had borne a child to her own father and strangled it in the room above. He added that he had lived in the castle for 30 years and had never known the omen fail, and that it had last been seen the day his son was drowned. Although the doctor considered his patient much better and pronounced that all danger was over, the omen had been no mistake, and the poor woman died that day. Many years afterwards, Sir Walter was called upon by a lady who came to consult him about her sister who was suffering from severe shock. She explained that during the summer she had accompanied her brother and sister to Torquay, whence they had driven over one morning to inspect the ruins of Berry Pomeroy. The steward, they found, was ill, and there was difficulty about getting the keys. She herself and her brother had therefore gone in search of them, leaving their sister in a large outer room, apparently from her description the same as that in which the doctor had been put. When they returned, they found their sister in a terrible state of alarm and distress, declaring that she had seen an apparition, the description of which tallied exactly with that formerly seen by Sir Walter. They had endeavoured to rally her out of it by expressing their disbelief and laughing at her fear, but their sister only grew worse, and her state now occasioned the greatest alarm. In reply to a question of Sir Walter's, she said that the steward had died whilst they were at the castle. The doctor then said, "Madam, I will make a point of seeing your sister immediately, but it is no delusion. I think it most proper to state before any interview. I myself saw the same figure under somewhat similar circumstances, about the same hour of the day. I should decidedly oppose any raillery or incredulity being expressed on the subject in your sister's presence." The lady recovered, and the apparition was never seen again, for the old steward was the last person to inhabit the castle. The final sentence in the above account has been proved incorrect, however, and I can give further accounts of appearances of the Blue Lady. And my next instance is from this century and is quoted from the late Eliot O'Donnell's Screaming Skulls and Other Ghost Stories. He relates how at the International Club for Psychical Research in 1913, a Mr. Taylor related a story told him by Mrs. King of Torquay. She stated that her brother, who was an army officer, went, whilst on leave, to see Berry Pomeroy Castle. Whilst wandering over the ruins, he saw a young and beautiful girl beckoning him from the summit of one of the ivy-clad walls. She was wearing a somewhat quaint, though becoming, blue costume. He, supposing that she was afraid to move lest she should fall, hastened to find a way to reach her. Having begun to climb up to her, he had almost reached her when the masonry beneath his feet gave way, and it was only by a miracle that he managed to save himself from falling headlong to a considerable depth. Clinging desperately to a narrow ledge, he was, luckily for himself, eventually seen and rescued. But on mentioning the plight of the lovely damsel, he was told that there was no reason to concern himself about her. She was not of this world, but the much dreaded phantom of a long defunct member of the Pomeroy family, who took a fiendish delight in luring people, especially men, to their destruction. An account of a recent sighting of the Blue Lady was given to me by Mrs. Ellis, who runs the tea room beside the castle. She related how a little while back a clergyman, his wife and daughter visited Berry one summer's afternoon. They entered the castle beneath the gatehouse, and as they did so, the daughter, who was about 18, suddenly cried out and then fainted. She was assisted to the nearby tea room where Mrs. Ellis happened to be. The girl was brought round and stated that she had seen the sudden apparition of a young woman dressed in blue who had beckoned to her from the gateway, and not the Summerfield, sorry. Her face was evil, and this and her sudden appearance had caused her to faint. Mrs. Ellis suggested to her that it was all her imagination and that she must have been reading about the castle and its ghosts before she came. But the father assured her that a quarter of an hour ago they had never so much as heard of Bury Pomeroy Castle. They had happened to notice the signpost and decided, on the spur of the moment, to go up there. Another sighting of the Blue Lady occurred in 1980 when Mrs. Jane Everett of Torquay visited Bury with friends. It was about 2 p.m. and they left by way of the steep path which leads to the valley below. Mrs. Everett glanced back to take a look at the buildings from below and was surprised to see a figure standing at the window of one of the rooms in the top story at the back of the castle. The others, however, could not see it. She wondered how anyone had got up there, and then she slowly realized that there were no floors for anyone to stand on, and that this must be none other than a ghost. Every time she looked back, the figure was still watching them. It appeared to be female and was clad in blue or purple. So, appearances of the Blue Lady can still be recorded in recent times. From her first recorded sighting by Sir Walter Farquhar at the end of the 18th century is a span of 2 centuries. This sad but beautiful ghost seems still to haunt the old building where she committed so horrible a crime. Ba, ba, ba. Oh, these are all beautifully short now. I'm sure we read that last time. I can't remember where we got up to, and I should have watched the end of the ghost stories to see where we got to. But there we go. So that's time to have a bit of the Banks beer. Let's just top the old beer glass up. Cheers, me beers. Don't know where Derp's gone. I think he's probably gone downstairs into the office. Or he's gone into the bedroom, actually. He likes to hide under the bed. So anyway, in the Magnificent Rush beer glass, from Kirsten and Steve in the United States, yet again. Cheers, me beers. Oh, that's got a lovely kick to it. And we'll have some of the single grain Scotch as well, because that eases the ghost stories into fruition. So cheers, me beers. Oh, lovely. Eases the ghost stories into fruition. I don't know what that means. But anyway, the Black Hound. Some years ago, Mrs. Aya Broughton, an artist of international repute, went with her husband to Bury one beautiful summer's afternoon. She wanted on that occasion to do a painting of the castle. She settled in the courtyard whilst her husband went for a walk. No one was about, and the silence was somehow uncanny. The brightness of the light, too, was unusual. She remembered this later on. In those days before the restoration, there was thick ivy on the ruined walls where birds nested, and on this fine day some were even basking in the sunshine upon the ground. Suddenly, the whole flock rose into the air, wheeling round and crying out in alarm. At the same moment, she was conscious of the presence of a huge black hound. The dog was quite alone and paced up and down before her. It was evil, sinister, and worst of all, menacing. It came very close, but not right up to her. Being psychic, I knew she was psychic, I just knew. Being psychic, Mrs. Broughton realised at once that this was no ordinary dog, but an apparition. Feeling that at all costs she must not lose her nerve, she tried to go on painting, though terribly afraid. She repeated a Buddhist prayer for use in the presence of evil spirits. May all beings be happy. After what seemed an eternity, the hateful thing gradually faded and then disappeared. Her husband very soon came back from his walk, saying that he didn't want to stay away too long because he had heard that the place was haunted and wondered if she was all right. Oh, these are all fabulously short, he said. Oh no, this one's, no, that's shortish. And that's no, we'll make of that what we will. Beer and a bump time, I think. Slange me va. Oh, I think we'll top off the banks. Yeah, that's marvelous. That's marvelous. You know what this means. And run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
Great film. Slange me bar. Oh, I seem to have a sticky bottom to the shot glass. We don't like a sticky bottom. Right. An old man with a scythe. My wife used to recall visiting Bury Pomeroy on a certain occasion when a child. She was with her mother and a little friend. When they arrived, there was some difficulty over getting the key, but her mother, Mrs. Charlesworth, saw an old man with a scythe cutting the grass in front of the gatehouse. "Run along and ask that man if he has the key," she said to my wife. But although the two children ran off in the direction indicated, they saw no one and came back again. Mrs. Charlesworth said, "Why, he's just over there. Can't you see him?" And thereupon went herself. She soon returned, however, saying, "He's dressed in such strange clothes and looks pure evil. I really didn't like to speak to him." Mrs. Charlesworth was known for her psychic powers. I knew she was psychic. And in this case, evidently saw the old man quite clearly. But the children could not. Goodness me, it's chilly up here tonight. We've got the heater on. Oh, I'm just having a look to see whether I should turn the... I think we might turn the... No, I'm just having a look. No, that's fine. That's on. That's on full. Right, beer and a bump time. Cheers, me beers. Oh, lovely. Slange. Oh, lovely. Yeah. Appearance of blue light. On Midsummer's Eve, 1983, still feels like the recent past for me, 43 years ago. Anyway, on Midsummer's Eve, 1983, whilst doing a ghost watch at the castle, I was seated on the rampart wall in front of the guardroom door. On my left was Mr. R. Dalby, and on my right, a medium who wishes to remain anonymous. A little before midnight, I saw a faint blue light emanating from St. Margaret's Tower. I asked Mr. Dalby, "Can you see that?" But he couldn't. I repeated my question to the medium, and she replied that she could. We watched while the light increased in intensity, and then, just like a pricked bubble, it suddenly vanished. Note that by saying to my companion, "Can you see that?" they had no means of knowing just what I had seen. But the medium said afterwards that she had seen a light and later described it just as I had seen it. It will be remembered that a similar light has already been described by both Mrs. Hartshorn and Mr. Roddy in Mr. Roddy. It will be remembered that a similar light has already been described by both Mrs. Hartshorn and Mr. Roddy. In the case of the first, there was also a small white cloud visible over the building. This phenomenon occurs again quite frequently in photographs. Bum, bum, bum. Cracking book. I know I've read this one before because it's on the red pile, but when I say red as in READ, not the color red, but I've got no recollection of reading it, and possibly because when I did read it, it was before the old. So yeah, but it's a cracking book. So, but I gotta say, we skirt freezing up here tonight. Anyway, cheers, me beers. Oh. Visible phenomena seen near the castle. Mrs. Ellis of Castle Mill has already been mentioned. He had another, Mr. Ellis, not Mrs. Ellis. Mr. Ellis of Castle Mill has already been mentioned. He had another psychic experience one evening when milking in a building adjoining the mill. He saw what he thought to be his nephew dodging in and out among the cows and disturbing them. He shouted at him to stop it, whereupon the figure disappeared. On going back to the house, he found, to his surprise, that his nephew was seated in front of the fire and had never been out at all. The figure he had seen was hooded, but resembled his nephew in height and build. Mrs. Roden, formerly of the Castle Lodge, told me that there used to be a wooden footbridge across the stream below the mill. Here, many people have seen an old lady in quaint, old-fashioned garments. She was always in the centre of the bridge with a smile on her face, not in the least alarming. Unfortunately, the bridge has been removed, and the figure has never been seen again. Mrs. E. Beveridge and a friend once saw in the mill yard a dark, sullen girl squatting on the wall, who glared at them with great hostility. The full story of this unpleasant encounter is related later under the heading of Going Back in Time. Trust me, if people start voting for reform more and more, we really will be going back in time. We'll be going back to the bloody dark ages. Anyway, welcome to Sunday Night Politics. That's my show. Anyway, cheers, me beers. Oh, Scotch, lovely. Appearance of Cavalier. Mr. and Mrs. V. Hills of Barton Hill Road, Torquay, told me that in 1980, on the Friday before Christmas, they were both driving home from Totnes at 8:30 p.m. They had just passed Bury Pomeroy School when they saw a dim haze in front of them, although the weather was clear. As they drove up the hill to the narrow bends, they were both amazed. The beer burps at 25 minutes and 55 seconds. Not bad, that. It's usually they come quite earlier. But anyway, I do apologise. They had just passed Bury Pomeroy School when they saw a dim haze in front of them, although the weather was clear. As they drove up the hill to the narrow bends, they were both amazed to see the figure of a cavalier crossing the road in front of them. He wore a large hat. With a feather, doublet and hose. His hair was in ringlets and he had a bushy moustache curling up at the ends. She described his colouring as grey and white, but misty with dark and light tones. He crossed the road from one hedge to the other, but was walking on a higher level than the road surface, i.e., on the level of the surrounding fields. He smiled at them and indicated to Mrs. Hills that he was going to the hostelry. He did not actually speak, but conveyed that meaning to her, but not to Mr. Hills. Exactly 2 weeks later, Mr. Hills was driving along the same road at 4:45 p.m. and saw the Cavalier again at the road junction where the signpost to the castle stands. He was coming from the castle and crossed the main road, but this time on the same level. He crossed to a gate where there is an old right-of-way to the village. He gazed at Mr. Hills, but did not speak or smile. Obviously a bit of a ladies' man then. Let's just see if we can play catch up with the illustrations. This was from previous. That was the female apparition, the blue lady. And here we have the Black Hound. There he is. The Black Hound looks like my maternal grandparents' dog, Judy, who was a black Labrador. And then we have the Cavalier. There he is, the Vauxhall Cavalier. Cavalier with his turned up moustache. So excellent stuff. I'm just having a look at the time and just wondering when we can have a ghost story snack, a Scooby snack. Oh, probably in the next minute or so. So, right. Bum, 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 bum. Freezing air. I know all about that here tonight because there is freezing air coming down the chimney breast and it's blowing through here. And despite the fact we've actually got the fire on, it's girt cold, folks. Anyway, 3 freezing air. I think this is number 3 from the catalogue of apparitions here. To pass from the phenomenon of visible appearances to that of freezing air is quite logical, for both sensations often occur together and are not peculiar to Berry. The cold air may also be accompanied by bristling of the hair and shivers down the spine. Oh my goodness me, I've just noticed my MacBook is telling me that it's running on battery power. And I don't understand that because it's plugged in. So that's just your MacBook. Sorry, folks, I'm just trying to work out why my MacBook is not. Ah, there we go. It's because the plug wasn't properly in. Sorry, bear with. Well, this is worrying because my MacBook is saying that it's not getting any power from the transformer. So we'll swap ends round and we'll do it this way. Ah, I can see why. It's because the transformer has fallen out of its connecting slot there. God, that was a worry there for a second. Are we being joined by viewer David? We are. He says, "Ding dong." Hello, viewer David. God bless you. So that was the right. Let's try it again. Freezing air. To pass from a phenomenon of visible appearances to that of freezing air is quite logical, for both sensations often occur together and are not peculiar to Berry. The cold air may also be accompanied by bristling of the hair and shivers down the spine. Sometimes these symptoms precede an appearance. Sometimes they come hard on its heels. We have already mentioned freezing air in the cases of Mrs. Anne Wright and her friend, of Mr. R. Dalby and his medium friend, and of Mrs. Ellis when sorry, that again. We have already mentioned freezing air in the case of Mrs. Anne Wright and her friend, of Mr. R. Dalby and his medium friend, and of Mr. Ellis when ploughing. I hope they mean fields. In addition, I can mention two odd experiences where freezing air occurred. First, consider what happened to Mr. Bridgman of Torquay, my postman. He is a keen photographer, and one bright summer's morning took a photo of the gatehouse. Afterwards, he climbed up to the guard room, and as soon as he entered it, he stepped into very cold air, whilst his hair stood on end. At the time, he did not pay much attention to it, but when the photo was developed, what should it show but the figure of a man or woman wearing a white ruffle and standing in one of the guard room windows. Thank you, Derp. He then remarked how, just after taking the photo, he had experienced the freezing air and began to think how odd it was that the two things followed so quickly, one after the other. The whole incident will be considered more fully under the category of photographic phenomena. A Mr. and Mrs. Rupert Everett, not the actor, a Mr. and Mrs. Rupert Everett of Edginswell, Torquay, also experienced cold air and shivering, not at the castle itself, but on the hillside opposite. Again, their paranormal adventure will be related under categories 7 and 8. Right. As you may have noticed, his derpy lurpiness has joined us. And what are we up to? We're at half-time, Derp. It's time to recount adventures. Oh, my goodness me. We have had adventures this week. Let's have a beer and a bump first. Cheers, me beers. Oh, lovely. Slange. Oh, lovely. Right, so let's just... Sorry, I'm just trying to bring up Facebook here. Wrong page. So let's just wait for the MacBook to change paces. Talk amongst yourselves. Right, here we go. So last night I got to meet up with my good friend Faye. And well, actually, yesterday, let's get this into sequence, shall we? I'm just seeing how I've got my see all photos. Here we go. Right. Okay. So. Yeah, that's fine. So, yesterday I picked my brilliant old Ridgeback mountain bike, 602 GS mountain bike, which I bought, checks notes, 31 years ago. Done thousands of miles on it. Haven't done much cycling recently, so I took it into the Strawberry Line bike place at Yatton Station and had a service done, and God bless them. Although I'd already fitted new tyres and inner tubes and brake blocks, they replaced the gears, the cables, and did a general service on it, and it rides beautifully now. So I went down the Strawberry Line yesterday from Yatton to Kongsbury, which is the section I walk with Reg. Quite weird cycling it yesterday, especially as I haven't ridden the bicycle for quite a few years. But there I am on the bridge at the River Yo. Just scrolls. Oh no, that's Faye. And there I am with my bike with a stupid grin on my face, because it was great to be back out on the bicycle again, especially my beloved rusty old Ridgeback. And as I remarked yesterday, both rider and both bike and rider are a little bit rusty, have a few dents and scratches, but there are hopefully still more adventures left in both. And at the end of the day, I quick release front wheel, pop it off, fold the back seats down on the binny, and I can get the bike in the back, which is great. So that means I can hopefully get my bike out to other places other than just riding locally. But fabulous to have my bike back in action. Got to say though, from doing a relatively sedate 3.35 miles yesterday, discovered muscles that I'd forgotten I had. A little bit achy, but I'll tell you about that a bit more from today's adventure. So, and then afterwards, I then had a chippy tea with my outderp. A chippy tea with my good friend Faye. So chippy tea with mushy peas. There's her cat Batman and a Robin. Batman and Robin, makes sense. And that's me eating my chips. I do love the chips from Kongsbury Chip Shop. I do love mushy peas as well. And there's Batman eating his fish treats, which Faye had bought him some. They were like desiccated fish treats. Batman wasn't interested in them. We tried him with one last night and he wolfed it down. We tried him with another. He wolfed it down again. So I'm sorry about that, Derp. You were going to get those desiccated fish treats, but you didn't get them in the end because Batman liked them. And there he is. He's an old cat. I think he's from Sardinia, of all places. But yeah, good old Batman. I'm cat sitting him in next week, so I'm looking forward to that. And there's me and Batman, and absolutely brilliant. Oh, and that's a song quote from the Marillion song "Care" off of their last album. The angels in this world are not in the walls of churches. Oh my goodness me. When that track came out on their album An Hour Before It's Dark, when I heard it, I had a very strong emotional response to it because it is such an incredibly moving song. What I wasn't expecting was a year later, after that album came out, what I wasn't expecting was to actually experience the NHS at first hand. And yeah, a song that celebrates the NHS and just how brilliant they are. Yeah, it strongly resonates with me. And it's such a brilliant song. Well, such a brilliant band, quite frankly. So today was To Reg Walk, and Reg decided that he wanted to do Kongsbury to Sandford. No, not Sandford from Hot Fuzz. Sandford, not Sanford. So we did Kongsbury to Sandford, which we have done quite a few times. So we started out. That's us starting out, and oops, Daisy, wrong one. And then when we got to the Railway Inn, we had tea and biscuits, very nice chunky biscuits. And there we are on the walk back with the sun behind us, a little bit drizzly. And oh my goodness me, there was a rainbow all the way back. It was quite remarkable. And there is more of the rainbow. We were literally chasing the rainbow on the way back. Look at that. That's just unbelievable. It's the longest I've ever seen a rainbow last. It was probably about 45 minutes. It was a little bit drizzly, but the sun was out. So as you can see, perfect conditions for a rainbow. Oh, look at that. That's just incroyable, ladies and gentlemen. And a double rainbow there. There we go, the double rainbow. And that's looking out toward, that's on the return leg. And there's Reg heading towards the rainbow. More rainbows, sorry, up above the streets and houses, rainbow climbing high. Everyone can see the rainbow in the sky. Paint the whole world with a rainbow. There we go. I used to watch that as a kid. They're just remarkable phenomena. They really are. Something quite magical about them. Yeah, so, and that was the last pick of the day, just as the sun was going down. And we ended up doing what was it, Derp? About 7.05 miles. It was a brilliant walk. It was absolutely fabulous. And I'm very grateful to Reg for coming out today. It's his birthday next week, so usually we do this. We alternate. One of us will choose the venue, and the other will cough up for the victuals. So today, Reg decided the venue, and I coughed up for the victuals. Bearing in mind it's Reg's birthday next week, his 71st birthday, I said, you know what, we'll carry on the same. You choose the venue and I will pay for lunch. So bit by bit, he's getting his appetite back. His hair is growing back as well, which is more than I can say for mine. But it was a brilliant day out today. It really was absolutely incroyable. So cheers, Reg. Did enjoy that today. Oh, and slange me var. Oh, lovely. So what's for supper tonight, Derbs? Right, I'm having salad. You've had soupy soup. You've had licky licks. You've well fed today. Right. So I'm just responding to friend Tara. Bear with. Bear in mind, without friend Tara, I wouldn't be here, because 3 years ago, she was the girl who frankly saved my life. So there we go, Derp. Right, we are up to section 4, paranormal sounds. Got the beer burps again. Oh, I do apologise. Oh, goodness me. This next section is quite long, but never mind. Section 4, paranormal sounds. We will consider the next category of paranormal sounds. I will mention first the unexplained sounds which I and others heard when on a nocturnal vigil one summer's night. We were seated up against the guardroom door overlooking the rampart walk. All was still and tranquil. We were all relaxed and cheerful, almost forgetting the purpose of our visit, when we suddenly heard the sound of something dropping in the guardroom behind us. What it could have been, I still do not know. It was not heavy enough to be described as a thud, not sharp enough to have been a piece of metal, not dull enough for wood. But it nevertheless resounded ominously in the empty chamber behind us. All within would be secure and neatly stacked just as the workmen had left it. There should have been nothing to drop, yet we all heard that distinct and unnerving sound. Whatever was it? Not long after, a door slammed somewhere in the house. Strange, because there was not a breath of wind, neither was there a door anywhere which could have been banged. The many doors in the castle once upon a time had long since mouldered to decay. Indeed, the only doors now existing were those belonging to the workmen's huts, but these were all firmly secured each night against vandals. Nevertheless, we all heard the sound of the slamming door, which could not have existed, and when there was no wind strong enough to slam it, even if it had. And so we sat and pondered over the two sounds which we had heard. I do not think any of us were quite as relaxed as we had been. Even then, about half an hour later, I distinctly heard the latch of the guardroom door turned ever so gently. An unseen hand was at work. Had we stayed any longer, then fear would have taken hold of us. And that is the moment to get away before anything worse takes over. I do not know if the others heard that final sound, but when I rose and suggested that we call it a day, there were no dissenting voices. All of the sounds which surely belong to another plane of existence, of all the sounds which surely belong to another plane of existence, surely the most exciting are those of the galloping hoofbeats of the Pomeroy brothers as they spurred their chargers over the cliff to certain death. Sorry, just slightly thrown there by the use of surely twice in a sentence. The two brothers, when besieged and driven to the point of surrender, chose to save their families and retainers from the horrors of surrender to a ruthless foe by giving of their own lives. Dressed in armour and all these splendid accoutrements of medieval warfare, they mounted their chargers, galloped along the north terrace, and spurred them over the brink of the precipice on which the castle stands, thus riding to a terrible death. The drama of this event was recaptured one night when Professor Raymond Cattell and his wife heard these very sounds. In his book, Under Sail Through Red Devon, 1937, are lively and entertaining descriptions of sailing round the Devon coast and up some of the rivers. Cattell describes sailing up to Totnes and disembarking there. Mentioning Bury Pomeroy Castle, he asserts that it takes a brave man to go up there alone at night, to climb over the gate, enter the silent ruin, and perhaps hear, as he did, the hoofbeats of the Pomeroy's horses as they charged over the precipice. I checked this reference with Raymond Cattell, now living in Hawaii, and he wrote as follows. My wife and I were living at Dartington at the time, and since Bury was less set up with keepers and regulations then, we would sometimes take a moonlight stroll there. The clearest we heard the sound of the hoofbeats was when standing on the graveyard just by the castle. I was describing the event to my wife, so it might have been the vividness of our imagination, but suddenly, almost as if from the sky, we heard galloping. We thought we could even hear the clink of the horseshoes on stones. Then there was a distinct cry and what sounded like suppressed screams. That was, to say the least, an amazing experience. It is noticed that both heard the same sounds. The beginning of the letter suggests that they had heard the sound of galloping on previous occasions, but less clearly. It is remarkable, too, that after over 50 years, the professor was still prepared to stand by the story, which is still quite clear in his mind. So far, I have not yet met anyone else who has experienced this gripping phenomenon. I think we'll have another beer and a bump there, Derbs. Clears. Cheers, me dears. Oh, lovely. Slange. What are we up to? 50 minutes. Goodness me. The adventure of Craig Rowland and his companions on Midsummer's Eve, 1982, has already been mentioned, but must be considered again under the category of paranormal sounds, because they all testified to having heard the sound of tramping feet in the undergrowth beneath them. This they found most unnerving because in the bright moonlight they could see that there was no one there, yet they could hear the sounds. Associated with the story of the lady in blue are the sounds of the crying baby, which she is said in folklore to have smothered. I had always tended to regard this as a legendary sound, but was suddenly made to change my mind on meeting Miss Heather Riley of Brunswick Terrace, Torquay, on January the 19th, 1985. She was at the time a nurse at Rowcroft Hospice. She said that in the autumn of 1982, she and 3 other girlfriends decided to spend the night at the castle. It turned out to be a wild night and pouring with rain. As they drove past the castle towards the car park, they were all aware that the gatehouse was closed and the entrance blocked by a massive iron-studded gate, a portcullis, no doubt. But after they had parked the car and approached the castle, they were more than surprised to find that this formidable barrier had simply disappeared. Nothing barred the entrance, but the usual lightly constructed slatted gate. On account of the pouring rain, they were compelled to pass the night comfortless beneath the gatehouse. At about 1 o'clock, Miss Riley distinctly heard the cries of a baby. This phenomenon seems to come from the woods near the car park. The cries were intermittent and lasted for about a quarter of an hour. An interesting point was that none of her companions heard the sound. Right, I'm just going to look up a date here. January the 19th, 1985. I get the funny feeling that was going to be a Friday. Don't get up, Derbs. January the 19th, 1985. So goes back in time. Oh, no, it was a Saturday. So January the 18th, 1985 was when pretty much I went to Weston-super-Mare with my late father for my interview to get into art college, where I was interviewed by my lecturer, the late Roger Tremaine. And my friend Mike, I was at school with, who had already done the course, he tipped me off and said, "Oh, Roger Tremaine is a massive fan of Genesis and Yes." So I made sure to take some artwork with me that was very much in the Roger Dean mold of Yes covers, and kind of, I know Roger Dean didn't do Genesis covers, but I also included some artwork that was very Genesis-like. And I then spent half an hour with Roger talking about Genesis, and we were supposed to be doing my my art college interview, but we ended up talking about progressive rock for half an hour. And at the end of that, I said to him, "Do you want to see the rest of my portfolio, Mr. Tremaine?" And he went, "Ah, no, I don't need to see that. You're in." So that particular day, I got into art college through a love of progressive rock. God bless you, Genesis and Yes and whatnot. So anyway, we're going to have some love corn. Because we's gert hungry. Oh, and the pretzels. 57 minutes up. I think we might manage do more tonight, and then we're downstairs to have some supper and watch some South Park. So there is Bury Pomeroy Castle. I think that's the main gate. Then we have the White Lady. Oh, the White Lady. And then we have more ruins of Bury Pomeroy Castle. Can you see that one? There we go. Ruins of Bury Pomeroy Castle. So I don't know whether we're going to do it more or unmore. Let's have a bit more beer. Cheers, me beers. Oh. And again, to viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States, the magnificent United Federation of Planet Shot Glass. God bless you, the pair of you. Really should get around to watching Starfleet Academy, but I'm too into South Park at the moment. So, Section 5, touch. So far, we have considered the categories of unreasonable fear, visible appearances, freezing air, and paranormal sounds. We will consider next the risk you run when you go to Bury of being touched by an unseen hand. The phenomenon is rare, and I have but one example of it. Mrs. Stella Joint of Torquay related to me how, a few years previously, when in her teens, she had visited the castle at dusk one Midsummer's Eve. She and a party of young people from Paynton Parish Church had decided to go in fancy dress for the occasion. Mrs. Joint and the rest of the party climbed up to the rampart walk and continued along it in the direction of St. Margaret's Tower. They all began to clamber down inside the tower, but Mrs. Joint stayed where she was. So for a few minutes, she was quite alone. She then felt a hand placed upon her shoulder and a gentle shove from behind. Thinking that one of her friends had stayed behind and crept up on her, she looked round to see who it was. To her horror, there was no one there. So unnerved was she by this incident that she could not take part in the fun of the evening. Neither could she bring herself to tell any of her friends what had occurred. It was only when she got home that she felt able to discuss it with her mother. They both felt it quite remarkable that, for her fancy dress, she went as the White Lady. We shall read what had already happened to the party on the way down the drive under category 7. So we're up to category 6. We have just gone through the hour mark. Right, we're going to go to category 6, and then that'll be it. That'll be it for tonight. I'm actually just going to have some more of the corn bits. God bless you. That's all I did today was spill my mint imperials in the car. Cheers, me beers. Strange. Right, last one for tonight. Section 6, photographic failures. Blank films, camera shutters not working, misty patches, yes, and ghosts appearing where none were seen by the photographer are some of the photographic phenomena at Bury. The first 3 occurrences are very common indeed. My wife, for instance, once had a whole film come out blank for no good reason rather. A lady came up to me after a lecture which I had given at Newton Abbot and said that all the photos which she had taken on a recent film were excellent, except for one taken at Bury. That was a blank. A few years ago, ITV cameramen came down to take shots of the castle by night. On the first night, all their cameras jammed and they could just not get the shutters working. The next night, they came again with cameras checked and working perfectly. But yet again, the castle got the better of them and everything jammed. As to what happened on the third night, read section 8. A certain Mr. Bullock, I'm not making it up, attended a lecture of mine at Paynton. I told this story to the audience, and afterwards he said to me, I'm in my 80s now, but in the 1920s, I well remember the Stoll Picture Company, who were well known at the time, sending cameramen to the castle, and exactly the same thing happening to them, for all their cameras jammed. This takes us back over 60 years with the same phenomena occurring. Goodness me, this book must have been written in the 1980s, 1920s. 60 years later, that would be the 1980s. I'm sure this is the 1980s. When was this book written? 1990. Okay. Take next the case of Mrs. May of Saltash. She is a member of the Saltash and District Cine Group. She and a Mr. Ronald Allen, also a member, went to the castle on the 16th of April 1983. Their idea was to get useful ideas for a feature film. They arrived at about 11:30 on a rather misty morning and decided to work separately for an hour. After about half an hour, she came across Mr. Allen, who said his camera was not working in spite of being carefully checked the previous evening. But nothing would register now. The iris from the lens had gone on strike. Back at the car, the camera was rechecked and everything should have been plain sailing. But on returning to the castle again, it would not work. It was therefore thrown into the boot in disgust. After lunch, Mrs. May's camera, described as very basic, was used with success. Then they thought they would give Mr. Allen's camera one more chance. It worked like a charm. They used up some 30 feet of film. It was sent off to Penchrome serviced the London processors, but judge of their surprise when they received the following from Penchrome. We are extremely sorry to advise you a most unfortunate accident to your film. Can it really be that the power of the Berry Pomeroy hauntings can exert their influence so far? But it would appear that they can, and in category 14, a further example is given. Then there is the case of Mr. R. Dalby. He is an expert photographer and visited the castle with me in May 1983. We went down to the valley below as he wished to photograph the ruins from there. We realized that as foliage was beginning to appear on the trees, it would be the next December before the opportunity would present itself again. A very sophisticated camera was used, and the light was reasonably good and clear, but the prints were misty and, for no good reason, unsatisfactory. Further photos were taken at the same time inside St. Margaret's Tower. Here, 2 shots were complete blanks. I will now introduce Mr. Bridgman, who has already been mentioned under category 4. Before ascending to the guard room, he had taken a photograph. Before ascending to the guard room, he had taken a photo of the gatehouse in the bright morning sunlight. When printed, this showed the face of a man or woman, it is hard to say which, looking out of the first-story window. Looking out of the first-story window of the right-hand tower. The figure is wearing a large white ruffle, so typical of the Elizabethan period. This came as a complete surprise to Mr. Bridgman, who did not see this apparition when taking the photo. Only the camera saw that. Another curious result was that although the sun was shining brightly at the time, the facade of the house has come out very dark, almost black. A later photo was taken some minutes after and from a slightly different angle. Everything here appears normal and there is no signs of the apparition. I think it should be there are no signs of the apparition, but there we go. Mr. and Mrs. Ellis have in their possession an old but very clear photo of the facade of the house. Gazing out of one of the first floor windows is a man who by his dress would appear to belong to the Stuart period. Just the head and shoulders are visible. Nothing is known of the origin of this photo. Unfortunately, it is more than possible that it is a deliberate fake. Indeed, many of the snapshots of ghosts which I have seen are so crude and stupid that they cannot for a moment be taken seriously. Mr. Bridgman's is beyond doubt the most convincing ghost photograph which I have so far seen. Right, note to self, when we pick up on Friday, we are up to 7 inexplicable engine failures. Goodness me, Derbs. Ow! These nails are digging into my leg. Cheers, me beard. Oh, delicious. Thank you, Lidl. Cheers, me beers. Oh, lovely. Right. That's it for tonight. Oh, my goodness me. What have we done, Derp? We have done 1 hour and 11 minutes. So not bad. There's Derp there on my lap. So we've done an hour and 11 minutes. Fingers crossed. We'll be back on Friday for Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra. Until then, it behoves me to say thank you for watching. Why not? What else are you going to do on a Wednesday night? Excuse me, the beer burps. What else are you going to do on a Wednesday night towards the end of January than watch a confused man from Dudley with holes in his head and a cat on his lap, drink ghost stories and read alcohol? Oh, come on, folks. You can do better. I can't. I am locked into this like a curse. But anyway, until the next time, as ever, thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, and please don't have nightmares. Good night.